Welcome back to my channel. Everyone, today, I'm bringing you a story that will keep you on the edge of your seat from start to finish. A tale of betrayal, jealousy, and ultimately, the sweet triumph of justice. Have you ever been betrayed by your own family? Imagine walking into your dream job interview and sitting across from you some your own sister. Someone who not only refuses to help, but deliberately does everything possible to humiliate you in front of everyone. This is the story of Duth Marine, a talented woman who has always been pushed into the shadows by her sister Seraphine. For years, she accepted living in her sister's shadow until one day. Today's story will take you through a roller coaster of emotions, from humiliation and anger to the sweet moment when justice is finally served, and pay close attention to the shocking twist when Seraphine discovers a mind-blowing truth about the boss she reports to every day. This isn't just a story about revenge. It's a story about rediscovering your self-worth and building your own path, even when the world tries to erase you from the picture. Adjust your volume, find a comfortable spot, and prepare to immerse yourself in the story. My sister mocked me during a job interview until she realized my fiancé was her boss. And don't forget to leave a comment below this video if you've ever experienced something similar. Now, let's begin. Nyasoman. Hi, my name's Duth. My sister didn't just mock me at a job interview. She made sure I never got the job, then laughed as they tore my test in half right in front of a room full of strangers. But what she didn't know, the man she reported to, the one who walked in next, was my fiancé. She thought I was beneath her until the silence turned and I didn't need her approval to rise. Ever been erased by your own family only to come back stronger than they could have imagined? Because this is the day I stopped asking for a seat and built the table myself. Before we begin, what time are you listening and where from? Drop a comment. Let's talk family drama. The walls were all glass, sleek, cold, corporate. I could see my own reflection as I walked in, my posture straight, my shoes scuffed, my name badge felt heavier than it should have. I held my resume folder close, the corners soft from being packed and repacked over the past few weeks. The Storm CP logo glared from every screen in the room like it was watching me. A few other candidates were already seated, polished, confident, designer suits, perfect hair, the kind of people who always know someone on the inside. I forced a smile when one of them glanced at me, but it wasn't returned. I took the only available chair, slightly off-center, not quite in the circle, like it had been left for someone who didn't quite belong. I reminded myself I didn't need to belong. I just needed to be seen. Then the door clicked and Seraphine walked in. She was in a navy silk blouse, heels that echoed on the tile, and a mug in her hand that screamed money. Her makeup was subtle but flawless, and her hair was swept into the kind of bun that says, "I don't have time for you." My breath caught. She didn't flinch when our eyes met, didn't acknowledge me. Not a nod, not a blink. She walked to the table like I wasn't her younger sister, like I hadn't once shared a room with her, like she hadn't ruined my first job interview 7 years ago. Seraphine took her seat among the panelists. Yes, panelists, and sipped from her mug while another interviewer introduced the session. The room buzzed with HR buzzwords: leadership potential, team synergy, scalable strategy. I felt like I was hearing a foreign language. "Would anyone like coffee?" one of the assistants asked, carrying a tray. The tray made its rounds. Every single person got a cup except me. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. Seraphine was already smirking over her mug, and I caught the moment she leaned toward the woman next to her and whispered, "She's still dressing like she shops in college clearance bins." The woman chuckled just enough to sting. I kept my gaze steady. I wouldn't give her the satisfaction, but inside my stomach curled. I stared at the tabletop and the grain of the fake wood. I focused on my breathing. I remembered nights sitting at my cramped desk, piecing together freelance contracts, learning system design from scratch, while my ex said it was a cute little phase. I remembered the day Seraphine forwarded my portfolio to the wrong client intentionally. The company pulled out. It was my birthday. I told myself I wouldn't run this time. Not from her, not from this. They started calling names, one by one. The candidates went up for introductions. As they spoke, Seraphine nodded, smiled, took notes. When my name was called, she didn't even glance up. I stood, walked to the center, and placed my resume down in front of her. She picked it up, stared at it for all of 2 seconds. Then, without a word, she slid it to the man sitting beside her like it was some misplaced brochure from the lobby. He barely glanced at it before setting it aside. And that was it. That was my moment. No questions. No eye contact. Just dismissal. I sat back down. Someone behind me coughed. The clock on the wall ticked louder than it should have. I tried to straighten my shoulders to ignore the heat creeping up my neck. "She's here." I heard a voice whisper behind me. "Didn't think she was even in tech." And then Seraphine laughed. Not loudly, but enough. I didn't turn around. I didn't blink. But I made a note. Some people look right through you when you're not dressed to their expectations. Others laugh when they think you're beneath them. The question wasn't whether they saw me. It was whether I'd let them define me. I reached down, adjusted the resume folder on my lap, and reminded myself of something my mother once said years before Seraphine started using words like legacy and executive brand. Don't ever beg to be invited somewhere you built. The paper made a faint sound as it slid away. Familiar. Like rejection always had its own soft signature. Before I could steady my breath, the next name was called another polished candidate gold watch. Thick accent. Yale ring stood and spoke about leadership and transformation. The panel chuckled at his jokes. Someone even clapped. The energy in the room shifted like I had never been there. I waited. Maybe they'd circle back to me. Maybe there'd be a pause, an opening, anything. There wasn't. 3 more questions flew by. I was passed over again and again like I was part of the decor. When the assistant finally looked my way, it wasn't with apology. It was more like, "Oh, you're still here." A tall man near the head of the table, Greg, I remembered from the intro email, leaned back in his chair and smirked. "So," he said, twirling a pen, "what makes you think you're ready for the big leagues?" His tone dripped with amusement, like he was asking a child if she thought she could run NASA. I opened my mouth, but before I could speak, Seraphine reached across the table. Her hand snatched the top sheet of my resume again like it offended her. She clicked her pen open, bright red ink, and scrolled something across the page. I could see it from where I sat. Wrong major, wrong look, wrong fit. Then, in bold block letters across the bottom, unqualified. The red bled through, staining the paper like a wound. I didn't blink. I didn't reach for it. I let her set it down with a self-satisfied smile, her hand sliding it across the polished surface like she was offering evidence in court. I cleared my throat. I led an AI ethics redesign for 3 mid-tier platforms, I said. Last year, I helped scale a predictive data system that cut processing time by 34%. A spawn. That framework is now. You still chasing those little dream projects? Seraphine interrupted, her tone airy, her smile syrupy. She turned to the panel. While I was presenting at a London summit, she was still uploading resumes, too. There were chuckles, a few suppressed coughs. Greg smirked. Even the assistant tried to hide a grin. It was happening again. But I didn't flinch. Not this time. I looked at Seraphine. Bestow. Not the panelist, not the corporate goddess in heels, but the sister who used to read my journals out loud at school when she was bored. The one who told me I'd never have the teeth for this world. And still, a part of me had hoped that just once she might look at me across the table and see more than a punchline. She knew my whole story. She knew how hard I'd worked, what I'd been through. But that knowledge wasn't a bridge. It was a weapon. I breathed in through my nose and out slowly. My hands stayed still. My voice, when I spoke, was calm. I may not look like what you're used to, but the results are there. You just chose not to read them. Greg leaned back. Well, we've seen enough. Appreciate the optimism. Seraphine's fingers drummed on the table. She didn't look at me now. She didn't need to. The damage had been done and enjoyed. A moment later, one of the panelists slid my resume back across the table, now folded sharply in half. Good luck finding something at your level, he said almost kindly. Maybe retail. I reached for it with steady fingers, nodded once, and stood. Thank you for your time, I said quietly, and I walked toward the door. But I wasn't going home. I didn't stop walking until the sliding glass doors of the building had closed behind me. Midtown traffic buzzed around me, sirens in the distance, horns like background noise in a city that didn't pause for bruised egos. My heels clicked on the sidewalk, purposeful, but not rushed. I wasn't running from anything, just trying to find air that didn't smell like polished wood and fake smiles. 2 blocks away, I ducked into a narrow cafe that always smelled like burnt espresso and guilt. The barista barely glanced up. I ordered a drip coffee I wouldn't drink just to justify taking up the corner table by the window. The folder was still in my hand. I sat down slowly. My fingers traced the edge of the top page. Red ink staining the corner like blood that hadn't been washed out completely. Unqualified in all caps. All confidence. I don't know why I was surprised, because this wasn't new. This wasn't even the worst of it. I stared out at the taxis zipping past, but my mind pulled me backward. Years ago, age 24. My first full-time job offer nearly in hand. I'd been freelancing for months, pulled all-nighters, polishing a pitch deck for a data integration platform tailored for nonprofits. I was proud of it. I had shared it with Seraphine one night in what I thought was a moment of sisterly bonding. She'd been consulting at a boutique firm. Then a week later, that same firm released a near-identical proposal presented by Seraphine. She didn't lie. That was the cruel brilliance of it. She just didn't correct them when they assumed it was hers. I mean, I didn't say it was mine. She told me later over wine at a family dinner. But if people connect dots, that's not my fault. The job had gone to a guy she referred, someone who had the right look, and I was left explaining why my concept had already been launched without me. I remember my father laughing at dinner that night. He raised his glass and toasted, "To my daughters. Seraphine, the visionary, Duth, she's always been the kind one." Kind. The word had stuck to my ribs for a decade. I stared down at the red ink now and realized this wasn't sabotage. It was a cycle. Every time I shared something, she'd bend it, reframe it, wear it, and then convince the room I was just a side note. Quiet, nice, but never sharp enough to cut through the noise. I pulled out my phone. My inbox was still open to a message from one of the small startups I did part-time code audits for. I had typed up a resignation last week, unsure if I was wasting time holding on to side gigs when I was trying to land something big. My finger hovered over the draft. Maybe I wasn't meant for any of it. Maybe all the late nights and self-doubt were trying to tell me something. Then I deleted the draft. No, not this time. She didn't get to shrink me again. Not today. The cafe was too quiet now. My coffee had gone cold. I pulled my phone out again when it buzzed. A text from Coulter. How did the interview go? I stared at it. My thumb started typing. It went exactly the way she wanted it to, but I paused, read it again, then erased it. That would have been her narrative, not mine. I took a deep breath, stared at the blinking cursor, and typed, "We need to talk. Can I see you?" 30 minutes later, Coulter walked into the cafe. His eyes found me immediately. He didn't need to scan the room, he just knew. That was the thing about Coulter. He always saw me, really saw me. He was director of development at Storm CP, but we hadn't met through Seraphine. We'd connected at an AI ethics conference 2 years ago. He'd only transferred to this office a month ago, which is why Seraphine had never met him in person. Our relationship wasn't a secret. It just wasn't anyone's business. He sat across from me, his tie slightly loosened, concern etched across his face. What happened? I told him everything about Seraphine being on the panel, about the red ink, about the torn test. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he didn't offer empty comfort or rage. He just asked one question. What do you want to do about it? Not what he could do for me, what I wanted to do. I straightened in my chair. I want to go back. His eyebrows rose slightly. Back to the interview. No, I said. Back to Storm CP, but not as a candidate begging for a chance. I want to show them what they missed. I want to make them see what I've already built. Coulter nodded slowly. I can arrange a meeting with HR and the development team. No special treatment, just a proper review of your work. That's all I'm asking for, I said. There's something else you should know, he said, pulling out his tablet. I was reviewing some freelance contracts from last year and found your name on 3 of our major projects. He turned the screen toward me. There it was, my digital signature on Storm CP contracts for AI ethics framework development. You've already been working for us, he said, just not officially. Seraphine never mentioned it. No, he said, his expression hardening. But I found something else while I was looking into this. He swiped to another document, an email, from Seraphine to HR. I was copied on this because we're revamping the hiring system, he said. It's from 2 years ago, flagging your application for cultural fit concerns. I read it quickly. The words blurred together, but the intent was clear. Seraphine had been systematically blocking me from within the company. This isn't just sibling rivalry, Coulter said quietly. This is unethical behavior that affected our hiring practices. I stared at the evidence, feeling a strange mix of vindication and hollowness. What now? Now, he said, standing up. We follow procedure. HR needs to know about this. Not because you're with me, but because it's the right thing to do. We walked back to Storm CP together, not holding hands, not as a couple, but as 2 professionals with a serious workplace issue to address. The elevator ride up felt different this time. I wasn't shaking. I wasn't second-guessing. I was ready. Coulter arranged an immediate meeting with Claire from HR and Marcus from legal. We sat in a small conference room, not the gleaming glass fishbowl where I'd been interviewed. I need to disclose that Duth and I are in a relationship, Coulter began. But that has nothing to do with why we're here, Claire nodded. Noted. So what's this about evidence of systematic interference with the hiring process, he said, sliding the tablet across to her. And Duth has just experienced an extremely unprofessional interview process. Marcus frowned as he reviewed the emails. This is concerning, very concerning. I'm not asking for special treatment, I said. I just want a fair evaluation of my work. Claire looked up from the tablet. Your freelance work with us has been exceptional. I'm reviewing the contracts now. Why weren't you brought on permanently? Ask Seraphine, I said simply. She exchanged glances with Marcus. We'll need to investigate this properly. It will take some time. I understand, I said. In the meantime, Coulter said, I'd like to request a proper technical evaluation for Duth, based solely on her qualifications for the lead developer position. Claire nodded. That seems appropriate. We'll arrange it for tomorrow morning. As we left the room, I felt lighter somehow, not because I'd won anything, but because, for once, I was being seen. The next morning, I returned to Storm CP wearing the same outfit, same scuffed shoes, same college clearance bin blazer. This time, I was escorted to a different room. A technical panel waited 4 developers and an AI ethics specialist. No Seraphine. They handed me a laptop. We'd like you to walk us through your approach to this system integration problem. For the next hour, I did what I do best. I built, I explained, I demonstrated. They asked questions, real ones, not performative dismissals. They challenged my assumptions. They pushed back on my solutions, and I rose to meet them, step by step, line by line. When it was over, the lead developer, a woman with silver-streaked hair and sharp eyes, nodded once. Thank you for your time, Ms. Marin. We'll be in touch. 3 days later, my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. Ms. Marin, this is Claire from Storm CPHR. We'd like to offer you the position of lead system developer. I gripped the phone tighter. Thank you. May I ask about the status of the investigation? Claire paused. It's ongoing, but I can tell you that Seraphine has been placed on administrative leave pending the results. I accepted the position. Not because of what happened with Seraphine, but in spite of it. My first day at Storm CP was 2 weeks later. I wore a new blazer not because I felt I needed to fit in, but because I wanted to mark the occasion in my own way. The security guard gave me my badge. It felt different this time. Lighter. I was setting up my desk in the development wing when a shadow fell across my keyboard. She's been suspended, a voice said. I looked up to see Greg, the man who had smirked during my interview. Pending termination. I didn't respond. She told everyone you slept your way in, he continued, his voice low. But after what HR found, well, nobody believes her anymore. I kept unpacking my things. Is there something you need, Greg? He shifted uncomfortably. Look, I just wanted to say, I should have actually read your resume. I finally looked at him. Yes, you should have. He nodded awkwardly and left. I didn't feel triumph, just a quiet certainty that I was exactly where I was supposed to be. Later that week, I was invited to meet with the full development team. As I walked into the conference room, I noticed the glass walls were covered with system diagrams, my system diagrams from the freelance projects. The team lead gestured to them. We've been using your framework for months. It's brilliant, but we didn't know who built it until now. A young developer raised her hand. We'd love to hear how you approached the neural network classification problem. And just like that, I was no longer invisible. I was valued for what I'd created, not how I looked or who I knew. That evening, as I was gathering my things to leave, my phone buzzed with a notification. A company-wide email announced the conclusion of an internal investigation, resulting in the termination of a senior staff member for ethical violations. No name was mentioned, but everyone knew. I closed my laptop and headed for the elevator. The doors were about to close when a hand shot out to stop them. Seraphine stepped in, clutching a cardboard box of personal items. We stood in silence as the elevator descended. Her perfume still smelled expensive. Her makeup was still flawless. But something had shifted. She didn't look at me until we reached the lobby. You planned this, she finally said, her voice tight. I shook my head. No, Seraphine, you planned this. Years ago, when you decided I was a threat instead of a sister, he's only with you to hurt me, she hissed. Coulter knew who I was. This was revenge. Coulter and I met at the Denver conference 2 years ago, I said quietly, before he ever knew you existed. Her face froze. I don't believe you. That's your choice, I replied as the doors opened. Just like it was your choice to block my applications, take credit for my work, and mock me in that interview. I stepped out into the lobby. They're offering me your old office, I called back to her. The corner one with the view. Then take it, she snapped. That's what this was all about. Wasn't it taking what's mine? I shook my head. No, I turned it down. I prefer to sit with my development team. That was the moment, the exact moment when something in her expression cracked. Not because I'd won, but because she finally understood that we'd been playing entirely different games. That weekend, my phone lit up with a text from my father. We heard about Seraphine. What did you do? I stared at it for a long time. The old me would have explained, defended, apologized. Instead, I wrote back, I built something. She tried to tear it down. The company made their choice. He didn't respond. My mother called the next day. Your father is upset, she said without preamble. I know, I replied. Seraphine says you used your relationship to get her fired. I closed my eyes. Did you ask to see my work, Mom? Did you ask what she did? Silence stretched between us. I always thought you two would work things out, she finally said. You were so close as children. We were never close, I said gently. You just never saw what happened when you weren't looking. After we hung up, I sat on my balcony watching the sunset paint the city gold. I didn't feel angry anymore, just sad for what could have been. Monday morning, I arrived early at the office. A young woman was waiting by my desk, resume clutched in her hands like a shield. Are you Duth Marin? She asked nervously. HR said I should talk to you about the junior developer position. I recognized that look, the hunger, the uncertainty, the determination. What's your name? I asked. Maya, she said. Maya Chin. Well, Maya, I said, pulling up a chair. Let's see what you've built. 2 hours later, I sent my recommendation to HR hire her immediately. That afternoon, I ran into Coulter in the hallway, professional as always at work. He simply nodded. How's the new team member working out? She's brilliant, I said. Reminds me of me, but with better shoes. He smiled briefly. Dinner tonight. Definitely. Over pasta that evening, he asked the question I'd been waiting for. Are you okay? With everything that happened. I twirled my fork thoughtfully. I didn't want her destroyed. I just wanted to be seen. You were always seen, he said quietly, by the people who mattered. I thought about Maya, about the development team, about the systems I'd built that were helping people I'd never meet. Yes, I agreed, by the people who mattered. We clinked glasses and moved on to other topics. There was more to life than old wounds. 3 months later, I was presenting my latest project to the board when I noticed a small plaque on the conference room wall. Integrity in Innovation, it read, Storm CP Ethics Framework, 2023. My name was on it, small, but there, not erased, not hidden, not borrowed. Mine. As I walked back to my desk afterward, I passed the front lobby where new candidates waited for their interviews, their faces tight with hope and anxiety. I caught the eye of a young woman clutching her folder too tightly. I smiled at her. This time, she smiled back. Sometimes our own family tries to erase us. Sometimes they succeed, for a while. But buildings outlast storms, and quiet builders leave their mark in foundations that remain long after the noise has faded. I no longer needed Seraphine's approval. I no longer needed my parents to see me. I had built my own table, and it was strong enough for others to find a seat. So, if you've ever been told you're beneath someone, remember this. The ground beneath your feet is exactly where foundations are built. Stand firm. Build anyway. Your name may not be on the door today, but your work will speak long after their voices have faded. The walls of my office aren't glass anymore. They're covered with code and diagrams and the faces of people who see me, really see me. And sometimes, when I catch my reflection in my computer screen, I still see that woman with the scuffed shoes and the determined eyes, the one who picked up the torn pieces and built something stronger. Have you ever had to walk away from family to find yourself? If this story hit home, share your thoughts below and don't forget to subscribe for more true stories like this one. Because the truth behind family drama, it's often not what it seems. And that's where Duth's story ends. For now, but her journey of rebuilding and reclaiming her rightful place has only just begun. What would you have done in Duth's position? Would you have confronted your sister earlier or handled it differently? Sometimes the most powerful response to those who try to diminish us isn't loud revenge, but quiet excellence. As Duth said, the ground beneath your feet is exactly where foundations are built. Stand firm. Build anyway. These aren't just words, they're a blueprint for rising above those who try to hold us down. If this story resonated with you, hit that like button and subscribe to hear more powerful true stories of triumph over adversity. Your support helps this channel grow and allows me to bring you more content like this. And remember, family dynamics can be complicated. If you've experienced similar struggles with siblings or family members, know that you're not alone. Share your thoughts in the comments below. This is a safe space to discuss your own journey. For those asking about my upload schedule, I post new stories every Wednesday and Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern. Turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. Thank you for listening. Until next time, remember this, that sometimes the people who try to erase you are the ones most afraid of what you might become. This is your channel name, signing off. See you in the next story.